Even before I do that, Be Live, I'm so sick of you sucker MCs. Every day I say that I'm going to leave Be Live, and I stick around like a bad codependent person, and you do it to me every time. But given that you still can't cancel me, Be Live, it's episode 76 of the Golden Mike Live. Marc Cordon and Tiffany Neuman, we are going to be talking about something that is near and dear to me. Branding. If you own a business, branding is a big deal. If you live a life, branding is a big deal because it's about your story. It's about your promise. It's about when you walk out of the room, what do people say about you? That is your brand. That is your promise. Janet, it is good to see you. Yes, I went off on Be Live. Laugh if you want. Janet, hey, it's good to see you. For those of you who haven't met me, I am your boy, Marc Cordon. This is Tiffany Neuman, brand expert, badass mom. Tiffany, that's right. Janet is like totally connected.
Hi, with Janet.
Badass mom, and basically is talking about not only branding, but rebranding for entrepreneurs. So that's what we are. That's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be talking about the idea of leveling up via rebranding. And for me, I'm scared crapless. Like I've made it a point to like put this red hair in my brand, and now I want to cut it off. And like, what does that look like? Alicia, it is good to see you. What is that? Is that a wave? Is that a high five or
I think
a wave?
It's a wave. Hi, Alicia. I know.
Hi, Alicia. It's good to see you. So Tiffany is going to be talking about that, talking about a couple other things. If you haven't met me before, or you didn't hear what I just said 15 minutes ago, my name is Marc Cordon. I am a positive psychology coach, founder of the Make Money Coaching Program. I just have two things. If you've never heard of positive psychology, are you feeling happy today? And are you living life in full purpose? So I still hope that you're at where you were before, Tiffany.
I'm still at 10, Marc. Yes! It's all good. Yes. Tech glitches happen. It's life, right?
It is. It's life. It's life. For those of you watching live, tuning in on the replay, Alicia, Janet, we're going on the fly right now. So send this out because you want your friends to see what's going on with rebranding and how to flourish through rebranding, right? So give us some hearts if you're feeling amazing today. Give us some hearts. How do you beat your heart, Tiffany? How do you beat it? Now, this is the other thing. Positive psychology isn't always about the shits and giggles and the Taco Tuesdays, right? Be Live breaks down, things happen, and we push through them, right? That's a huge part of what it means to live life. That's a big part of what it means to rebrand. So for those of you who might be going through a life rebrand right now, where last week you were totally happy and you're not as happy anymore, or you're going through a purpose rebrand where you're thinking, what was it that I was doing? Because I just spent 30 years in corporate and now there's got to be more to life than this. So you're going through a life rebrand. That is part of the process. You are living your hero's journey just like everybody else. Just because it's not Taco Tuesday doesn't mean that you're not living life to the fullest. Give us a thumbs up so we know that you're out there and you're living your life. You do your thing. That's part of your hero's story. That's going to make good copy one day, too, if you happen to be part of a brand, because branding is storytelling as well. Gary Fleming. Yup. It's good to see you, Gary Fleming. It's good to see you. So this is the other thing. And this is a big reason why I'm a positive psychologist. Oh, look at this. Love you, Tiffany. Aww. You rock. I'm loving the love in this today. So this is a big reason why why I do what I do. And whether it's Taco Tuesday for you and you're totally flourishing and thriving, or whether you're not having the greatest of weeks and you're trying to figure some shit out, if you're optimistic, if you know that wherever you're at, that tomorrow is going to be an even better day because you're learning from today. There's another button down there. Alicia Rose, Gary Fleming. Janet, I want you to do it with all of us so that they can see this wow face made around the world. If you are optimistic about the future, hit the button right now. Tiffany, make the face. Give us a big old wow
do the robot
face.
I liked your robot earlier.
Oh, so let's do the robot into a wow face. Robot into the wow face. Wow face. Okay, so given all that stuff, Tiffany, what's your story?
That's such an interesting question that you asked. And before I go there, I just want to tell you how much I love tacos because you've mentioned it so many times. I had to say that. It's kind of embarrassing, but one of my stories is my nickname still is with a few friends from college, Tiffy Taco. It's kind of embarrassing. That's how much I love tacos. That's my story.
So here's the thing: crunchy tacos or soft?
Soft tacos.
Ooh, and what type of
Yes.
Okay. We can go. We can
debate about that later.
Yeah, we can debate about that later. But yes, I'm a huge taco fan too. But that was not my nickname in college. And thank God Facebook didn't exist, so you don't know what they called me in college.
Probably good. That was embarrassing to admit. Okay. But the real question, what is my story? So basically, to summarize it, I live and breathe design and branding. I have since I was a teenager, really. I used to be the kid that would sit in my parents' in my house as a little kid. And I started out in architecture. I would draw house plans and I would beg my parents for architecture magazines because that was fun to me. I was silly, but then I realized how much math was involved. And I was like, no, that's not going to happen. Then I went to school for design. I lived and breathed it. I taught it at the college I went to for a long time. And then, like you said earlier, I was in the corporate world for over 15 years. I did design, I did branding, I was a creative director. And that is really what spurred me on to, like you said, what happens when you're not happy anymore, And when I became a mother, I decided I'm just sitting here working all day, working for these other people, and it wasn't inspiring. And I always had this urge in me to be an entrepreneur. So yourself, so many other people in that space, you just have that inside of you and you don't know. So many of us have so many passions or not enough passions. You're like, what am I going to do? And so it was pretty obvious what I was going to do with that, but I wasn't sure who I wanted to serve. And then I really got into studying entrepreneurship and being a part of it. And I was like, I want to work with these people. Entrepreneurs are the best people there are. They're just outgoing, they're fun, they have brilliant minds, and I just love being part of that and helping people to create their best brand and face forward to reflect that. And then also, as far as the psychology part, I'm a huge self-development fan. I think most entrepreneurs are. So I studied with my mentor is Mary Morrissey. I'm not sure if you've heard of her, but I studied with her with over 10 years. So that's made a huge impact and in my life and in my growth, and then also in my work. So, and I'm a wife and a mother, and I have a beautiful bonus daughter who just turned 17 and a 4-year-old.
That's right. And I was just watching your video, and I think you just wished her a happy birthday. And you guys were going to some rock concert or something like that.
Yep. Live music.
Were there tacos at this rock concert?
They did have tacos, but I brought my own sushi. So that was my other favorite food. So I didn't have the tacos, but I brought sushi. So that was even better.
Yeah. So let me go back to this. It seems like you had this beautiful progression, basically, that on paper, it looks like almost you had a stepwise dream come true happening over and over and over. Was there ever a point where it was like an existential crisis for you and you're like, oh my gosh, I've been incorporated and I need to get out, or teaching is what I love doing and I don't want to do it anymore. Did you ever have those moments or have you always been a person that you seem very chill, and you're like, yeah, let's, it's time to go. So I'm gonna go.
It's a combination, honestly. Like, I'm very chill, and I just follow the path that happens. I just take the leaps and do what's in front of me and the next obvious step. But at the same time, there's always those points where, like you said earlier, like looking back, the pieces all fit, that mantra, but in it, it's not always that way. Like, I'm like, what the hell do I do half the time, like at certain transitions. So absolutely, like, it looks like I'm just like, oh, this equal path, like it makes so much sense, but it definitely didn't feel that way all the time. So I think a few of those were like in corporate, I became a mother. This is kind of TMI, but I'm like an open book. I can remember one specific, you look scared, but it's okay. I remember one specific time I was in an airport because I worked with a lot of big brands, and I would travel around the world, not around the world so much, a little bit, but mostly around the country to meet with these brands and have strategy sessions and everything. And I'm in an airport bathroom pumping because I'm a new mom. And I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? Like, why, what is this? Like, because I was so career and driven and oriented, and I like worked my way up from an intern to creative director. Like I did that. I worked hard, busted my butt, and so, and so I'm like, what am I doing? But at the same time, I worked so hard to get here, So like, that was that crisis for sure, that I think so many entrepreneurs have, especially if they start out in the corporate world, but just in general too.
Sure. So you're in corporate, you're pumping, and was that a moment where you were like, I'm going to take action about this? Or was it something along the lines of like, between the point where I realized in my previous job that I was done with it, between that point and the point where I was actually pushed out of the nest, that was years. Like, I literally stayed there for years because I was paralyzed. Like, was it like, yeah, I'm ready to go,
Right. Yeah, that's a great question. I think I was definitely ready to go. Like, that was a defining moment for me. So I went back and just strategized, like, what could I, nice, Alicia. That's awesome. And I could, that makes sense actually, because you would be out. Okay. Anyways. Yes. So I love it. There's never TMI. Anyways, so I think that was definitely a huge moment, and it had been kind of bubbling up in me anyways, obviously, like being away from my daughter. And it's not like I'm with her all the time now anyways. Like, I run a business, I'm here, and she goes to preschool, but there's more flexibility. But anyways, I'm a very strategic person. So and then working with Mary and like personal development stuff, what that spurred was me to go back and like, what strategy can I take? Instead of just going and quitting, because that's probably not the best thing, like, what can I do to transform and get out of this situation as quickly as possible, but still have it be a smooth transition for myself and our family and our financial situation. So I made a proposal and I pitched them to go down part-time to start building my business and training a new person to take over my position, which they were really grateful for. Worked out really well for me. So we had that like win-win going on. I always try to look for the win-win. And then, and then I stayed there for about 9 months to make that transition.
Mm-hmm. So Alicia, who's pumping, Gary, Janet, I see y'all. Herman, Sarah, it's good to see y'all in this. So I'm putting up a question right now, like whether it be, you showing up to work like I did, or it was actually a moment when I was driving from work where I was like, there's got to be more to life than this. Or you're in an airport bathroom pumping and you're saying there's got to be more to life than this. What was the moment in your life? What was that moment where you were like, this is not what I ever asked for. This is not what I wanted. So now let's go to this, right? So that's a personal rebrand that you were kind of going into, right?
Totally.
So now you're in the position right now where you're helping entrepreneurs with sort of that best expression of themselves, putting their best foot out there. In the coaching space right now, authenticity is the word of the year, right behind vulnerability, right? So like,
yep.
In terms of branding, it would make sense that you would go from, kind of being that person that was kind of working in that for a little while, to really helping entrepreneurs find their full voice, for me, it's the difference between when you find that authentic brand, it's the difference between playing karaoke or singing karaoke and like actually writing music and being the front person of a band. Like that's the difference.
Great
Are you on
analogy.
karaoke? Yeah. And so like what are the things that you've been seeing when it comes to branding? And to even go even simpler than that, how do you define branding? Because I've heard it used a million different ways.
Yeah, I love that question. So I'll start out with how I define it. And it's defined so many ways, but kind of like you started out in the beginning, you painted a really good picture of it as far as it's not just a logo. That's the first thing. I think so many people are like, oh, I'll just make a logo and I have a brand. Like, ooh, yay. Yeah. And it's so much more. It's your story. It's your messaging. It's what you're offering and how you're encapsulating all of that. All pieces about it. And then and how that transposes to every touch point. So a touch point is, how you're showing up on Facebook, how you're showing up if you go to a live event, how you're showing up on your website, all of those pieces really come to that. And then, so what I noticed, and so I've done a little bit of pivoting myself in this last, since I've left the corporate world, because I knew I wanted to serve entrepreneurs, and I started serving them and it was great. But what I definitely noticed is at first I would be like, oh, like Fiverr and DIY methods. Like, I don't believe in DIY for branding. That's what I was saying at that time, because you don't have that expert knowledge and you don't have that type. But I changed my pitch recently somewhat recently, because it actually is really good to do the DIY and Fiverr or your neighbor's brother or whatever connections you have when you're starting out as an entrepreneur. There's a huge difference when you start out because you don't know your voice. You may not even know exactly what you want to do. So many people start out and then they pivot and they're like, oh, I'm going to be this. And then they, maybe they're a copywriter and then they end up being a coach, or they're, they're doing something else and they pivot. And so to really get your true brand, I feel personally that you need to be in business for a few years and really get in your groove and nail your niche before you really invest in a solid brand. So what I do is create legacy brands for people. And I really work with those people who are established. And that's why a lot of times, sometimes it's a new brand, but sometimes it's like what you said earlier, it's more rebranding because they have stuff in place. But a lot of times it's kind of cobbled together because they're building, they're going, they're moving, and they're shaking quickly, and they're putting these piece parts together. And that's cool. Like to get going, that's totally fine. But then you find yourself at a certain level and you're looking around at your peers and their brands are all sexy and like looking good. And you're like, shit, mine is kind of disjointed. Like I have this on Facebook and I have this, and I'm calling it out. This is just what I noticed, Yeah. It's all over, and it's not always the case, but so there's two things. Like people invest a ton at the beginning and they kind of use it as an excuse to not do the real work. They'll be like, oh, I got to get my brand perfect first. No, just do the work, get into it, get your groove going. And then once you get up to a certain level, then you want to invest in like a really solid brand. And that's my philosophy.
So why invest in a really solid brand? What does that actually mean to a business who's been kind of Fivering it, or like I'll admit that I'm one of those folks, I'm throwing my logo together. I mean, that's what I did when I was in a band, I'm still flinging out coaching like I was like CDs from the back of my trunk, but I feel like my record deal is coming soon, and so, I think you're right. Part of it is just like, dude, it's not a perfect logo, but just show the frick up so people know. And then if Be Live breaks down, let them know that you're still coming. Like there's, and hopefully that's a part of my kind of DIY brand. But why should we consider moving to that legacy brand now?
Right. And first of all, I just want to say, like, don't diss yourself too much, because the red hair and the logo with the hair is actually really awesome. And I feel like it fits you. But there's always, like you're saying, there's always times of level. So how I see it definitely is once you hit the point, and there's no like magic formula or anything, but really once you hit the point where you have a following, you have like your framework that you're offering, or your solid program, or your solid whatever that tangible thing is, and you just want to go to the next level. Like again, you see peers out there and you have this competition.
Yeah.
It's a crowded marketplace. And I'm one of those people who definitely believe that there's enough people out there that we could serve a billion people all day long. Like,
oh yeah.
Instead of looking at it as competition, it's like, who is the best fit? But to stand out in the abyss and to really show your essence. And like you said, authenticity is kind of a buzzword. So I like to say your essence, your legacy, like who are you really? What are you really offering? And how does that proceed? And I really look at the branding process as, because I've done so much self-development work myself, it's not just looking at the target market and looking at the competition and then coming up with something for that. It's a self-development
analysis.
Yeah.
Right.
It's doing that process yourself. Like how many, and it's funny because this is another thing I've been finding with clients recently. I was doing the typical, like, fill out this brand questionnaire, fill out this brand survey that always happens. F it. Like, that does not work. I love to sit down with people and interview them and say, and talk it through. I mean, it's really a process to dig deep and have that come out, and not, and when you sit with a piece of paper, it's overwhelming and people are like, oh, I don't know, I have to come up with this mission statement. It has to be just right. It's like, no, like,
with the decision. Yeah. About
yeah.
what it stands
So
for.
like, let's talk it through. And that's kind of my role too, is to be a mirror, to be a reflection to people and be like, okay, what I hear you saying is this, and what I see is this. And they're like, oh my God, yes, that's it. And then it's like the translation, messaging, visual, and everything like that.
Okay, so I've got a couple questions that are already coming in. One person Facebook lived or Facebook chatted it to me, so I'm going to ask that. And then Herman, I think you might have answered Herman's question a little bit, but you were talking about sort of branding and then getting more solid. So like, what is the difference? How can we tell? And so for example, if Herman is first starting out, I'll throw myself in the loop. Like I'm a couple years in, but I'm gonna launch my second offering next month. So like, it's like I officially am having and they're completely different packages now. Like one is for coaches, the other one is for entrepreneurs who want to start a revolution. Very different packages. And so like, what does normal and solid branding look like?
Yeah.
Good question, Herman.
That's a great question. And Mark, I love what you just said, because that's exactly what I was going to say. One of the main things that separates it is how, like I said, things are disjointed before. So a lot of times people will brand their different offerings separately because they're for different target markets, right?
Yeah.
So what I really do to create the legacy brand is brand the person, because you are Mark. There's only one Mark, and you can have all of these, exactly. You can have all of these different offerings. If you have what I call a legacy brand and the solid brand in place, it allows you to pivot and iterate so much quicker, because you have the framework in place where you have this umbrella brand, so-called, and then you can say, okay, I have this service offering for these people, this service offering for these people, but they all have that same unique look that is Mark. And that's the main thing. So it's not disjointed. And then also, because of all my work with people in like companies in the corporate world, if you look at them as, now that's a lot different than entrepreneurs in a lot of ways, because you are selling yourself in a way, and what your offering is and your personality, where a brand, we would take like 6 months to a year and like $100,000 to brand and do like all these target market things and stuff. And that's a little bit different. Like, obviously that's insane, and entrepreneurs don't want to take that much time or money. But what I've done is condense that down and really figured out how to offer a framework that allows that same top level look. So if you look at like Stoli Vodka, for instance, was one of my clients. If you look at them and their brand. It's not like they rebrand every freaking vodka out there, you know, like, oh, this is a new type of vodka, this is a new type of vodka, or whatever. Yeah. It's Stoli, and then, you know, whatever's underneath it. Same with like Adidas and like all these really kick-ass high-level brands. So that's the same way I look at it with entrepreneurs.
That is such an awesome question. I think something very similar is coming in from Cassie right now, who is asking the question, business, just putting your business name out there. She doesn't have a full-on like names of her products yet, but she doesn't know whether she should go and get not emails. What is it saying? Web addresses for each product,
URLs,
or she should put URLs, or she should put all the products under the same domain, which is her name.
That's an awesome question as well. So, of course, there's always dependent. Can we ask her what the product is? Because it depends. But if not, I can give a generic answer.
No.
Okay. It's all good. I can give an answer.
No, I'm frozen.
Oh, wait. There you are.
I
was like, I know, I was like looking. No, don't freeze on me.
Okay, if it freezes again, just run the rest of the show because you got this. You got this.
I'll just keep talking.
Just keep talking.
Hi, I'm Mark. Okay, so to answer, oh shoot, what was the question? Oh, the URL thing. Okay. Technically depends. So if you are doing a service offering, I would absolutely, and I did a Facebook Live in my group, so I know you're going to share my group later. So there's some things on there where I speak to that a little bit. First of all, the question is, do you want to brand as your business name or your personal name? And there's reasons behind both, and there's reasons. Typically, if you're a product, you want to go with a business name, or if you want to sell your business in the future, obviously you don't want to name it under you. Otherwise, I strongly suggest that 80% of the time people brand under their name and then put their offerings under them as an umbrella. Like I said before, that allows you to iterate and to pivot. So if you get bored of what you're doing in 3 years, or it's not selling anymore, like everybody bought it and you're like, hey, I want to do something else. You can just do that and you still have your following, you still have your name in place, you know? But to her point, sometimes it is good to have those separate URLs and brand. It depends on the products. Like if you have candles and stuff like that, or like, I don't know, say you have candles and an app and clothing, I don't know, like really disjointed things. Absolutely. I would have a separate landing page for each of those so you can target your market, but then also put those under umbrella, under your name. So they can relink. And then you can link back and forth between those URLs, which helps SEO. So like that's a win-win.
Oh, that's freaking awesome. That's freaking awesome. This is not a question. It's just Jorge showing up. Jorge showing up from Puerto Rico. And by the way, Jorge, you have officially been pulled into the Golden Mike brand because we are making t-shirts for Jorge.
He's got a red shirt on. He's branded already. That's awesome.
Well, he shows up so much and just gives love that all we want to do is make a Jorge shirt and give it out to our guests from here on out.
I love it.
Gary Fleming is saying it seems like your brand should at some level indicate your vision.
Absolutely. And that's really the first part of the branding method that I teach is to start with your vision. And instead of branding people where they are, typically you say meet people where they're at. And that's important to meet people where they're at. But I'm kind of a self-proclaimed futurist, if that makes sense. Like I love techie stuff. I'm into AR and VR, like all kinds of things. But I also like, what I was going to say sounds really weird. I see the future, but I look into the future. Like I'm almost too big picture. Sometimes I have to reel myself in. But like when I I co-create a brand. It's just not me. It's a process together. I help people look into their vision 5 years, even 10 years down the road. Where do you want to be? And go from there. Because otherwise you're just going to have to keep rebranding. So that comes back to the legacy vision or the legacy brand as well, and creating your legacy business. So that's a really good point as far as the putting that vision piece into it. Like, absolutely, your vision is the main thing. And then also your mission, how you want to show up in the world, who you're going to serve, how you're going to serve them. Like, for me, I only work with people who have a big vision, because like we want to make changes in the world. Like, it's a crazy place sometimes. Like, I want to be part of the positive place like you are, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So let me ask you this. Like, you'll be walking through New York City and you'll see just a logo, right? So like, on a smaller scale, like I give out my face and have people, it's on a sticker, and I'm just like,
Nice.
throw the stickers around and like take a picture of it and hashtag this, right? So, but
that's like guerrilla marketing.
It's totally guerrilla. Like, it's still like from the back of my, selling CDs from the back of my car. But also at the same time, like when you go to New York City, there's like, you'll just see the swoosh, right? From Nike, right? And that's brand awareness, right? How can we all think about what brand awareness means in our legacy brands?
That's such a great point. I would say
I'm sorry to cut you off, but a lot of people will say, well, you got to have a lot of money to create brand awareness.
Not necessarily. I mean, money always helps. I mean, everything. But I would say, first of all, you have to have a good product or service. I mean, that's just kind of key. You could brand, it's like putting lipstick on a pig. If you don't have something good, it's, it can look really pretty, but if you don't back it up. So that's another thing that's really important. And then it comes to like, branding is everything. So it's the copywriting, the messaging. But as you're saying, like the swoosh and those types of things, that's really a process. So I think part of it, and that's about why I talk about a legacy. So if you think about how long Nike's been around, how long Apple's been around now, how long those brands, like you have to be dedicated for the long haul. And once you make that decision to create a legacy, you don't want to change it every 5 years. And that's why I think it's so important to, do something that you love and invest in it and create something that you're just like absolutely in love with, and then stick with it, because then that will create over time that awareness, and that, people will see. I mean, if you think about people like Oprah, Marie Forleo's at that point, Tony Robbins, all those influencers that we look up to, that's really, they got to that place, but it takes time. I mean, Marie talks about on her shows, people are like, oh, she's this overnight success. No, she was doing this stuff. She had her TV show for a long time. So and I'm like impatient as heck, like, honestly, like I want to get stuff done. I want to, it's true. And so it's a constant thing, is like, okay, like calm down, be in the moment, like strategy. And there's a strategy to it too. I'm not going to lie. It's not like you just take your time. And then it's like a drip, drip, drip. It's just like marketing, just dripping that brand out there. Making sure it's really consistent across all your platforms. Like handing out stickers, that's brilliant. Just do like, and what specific, like for you and your brand, that's like perfect, handing out stickers. If somebody else is like, I don't know, like really refined and like whatever, and they want to do something, maybe they hand out like fancy pens at events, just those types of things that are going to keep that in people's minds.
Love it. Love it. So Jonathan is thinking about his logo right now at this point, and his brand right now. I think he's linking some of these things. Gary loves it. Be an influencer, really powerful frame of mind, more heart than money will get you there. Love it, Penguin.
Absolutely.
Love it, Penguin. Now Jonathan is coming in. Look at his brand.
Oh, nice. Love it. Shoot.
The orange
That's
suit.
Sweet.
So how can you create that perfect logo that showcases your brand, so when people see it, they know exactly what it represents?
That's a trick question. And I will answer that. And people may or may not agree with me. Okay. So you can't. You don't. I mean, if the Nike swoosh, when Nike first came out and somebody saw a check mark, does that summarize their brand? Does an apple summarize what Apple's about? mean, I'm just reflecting here. So really to look at it is it's the long term, but then it's also getting to the core. The logo, again, is such a small piece of the overall brand. So it is super important, and there's an extensive process to go through to get that perfect logo. But especially in modern days, you'll notice all the big brands. Like if you see, I don't really eat fast food, but if you go past fast food, you can see how they're redoing the logos and they're modernizing in them and they're simplifying them. And hotels, some of them are actually getting worse, I noticed with the hotels, but a lot of these big companies are going through rebrands just to modernize and get out there, and they're simple. And so for me, it's simple is better as far as the logo goes, to be recognizable. And there does need to be, a lot of times too, it's not a pretty picture. There needs to be a thought process behind it, and it needs to be conceptual. So when I'm going through that process with clients, we always talk about those stages and the concepts behind it and tie it back to their why, tie it back to everything else. But when you see it online or something, it may not instantly spark everything that person's about. Like it's not going to do that, but it will intrigue people enough to go and visit. Or the words, some people will even, it's common now to just have like 3 words or, your name, like Marc Cordon, would be the brand. But then that's where the rest of the brand comes in. So your tagline is huge, because that in your tagline, you can succinctly say what you do. And then also in your website. So your website is like, you have 6 seconds to capture somebody's attention. Like, what are you going to say quickly? It's your logo, which starts it, your tagline, and then that visual. And so what I love to do is really get the visual of somebody on their website, have that be super conceptual. So, and this is something too, people might not agree with me, but what I've noticed too is so many times people are like, oh, I just need this photo shoot. And they're like leaning up against the brick wall and they're like, here I am, I'm so pretty. And I know I'm calling a lot of people out, so this is kind of bad, but it's true. There's like, that could be anybody. And you could be, selling pizza, you could be selling candles, or you could be the most amazing life coach ever. Like, I don't know by just seeing that. So like, how can you encapsulate that in the visuals with the logo when somebody lands on the website? And then you just get this feeling, like what feeling do you want people to get when you get there? And the cool thing about that too, and then video too. So I know that's going on a tangent off of the original question, but I'm just backing up like what you can do, because the logo won't capture it all. So the other thing too is just using video is massive.
Yeah. Well, I think what I'm getting is it's a multimodal approach to this. It's the logo, it's the way that you use words, it's the you can critique mine if you want. Like my working one for multiple years was that I work with misfit coaches who want to change history for the better, right? And then all the copy was around this, and then all of a sudden you see this redheaded crazy man, as the logo. But like, and then all my copy was about like, hey, misfits, hey, do-gooders, blah 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 blah.
Totally, call them out. Yeah,
sort of, yeah. And the big thing though that I'm hearing is that it's a multimodal approach. Is that your logo, you actually as the inspirer, as the influencer, you breathe life into the logo by showing up in this legacy brand. You commit for a long time. So you can have a sticky note, or something as your thing, and it doesn't mean anything at the beginning, but as you go further, you assign the meaning to it. And is that what I'm hearing?
Totally.
Okay.
And you know what? One of my favorite things to do is to get the conceptual piece in the logo. If my clients are open to it, which I always try and do, is add these concepts in there, is to have subliminal messages in the logo. So that's what a lot of times these big brands do. And it's super tiny. But if you think about, do you know the hidden image in the FedEx logo?
The arrow?
The arrow, exactly. So, and not a lot of people, and not everybody knows that, but the arrow's there, and that's infusing like fast and moving forward and those things. And so it's really like a small thing, but like it just makes it that much more fun, because then eventually people will notice it and they're like, oh my God, like I never noticed that before. And it's such a small thing, but it's really cool and important. And I think that's a thing behind it too. It's not going to capture, it just can't capture everything in one logo unless you have this crazy picture, which isn't succinct and recognizable, you know, so you kind of have to have that balance.
So good, so good. And I'm thinking about the Amazon logo. Like I've been shopping there for years, and it wasn't until recently someone was like, "Did you notice it goes from A to Z, and then it's a smile?" I'm like, "Oh my gosh, really?"
Yep. That's what's all in there, and that's why again the big brands spend big bucks and like have a team and all that stuff to go through that process.
Okay, so let's talk about the level up method.
All right.
The level up method is something that you have established, and it's I'm curious as to why you created the level up method and how this can work for those of us who feel like we're ready now.
Okay. Yeah. So kind of just adding on to what we've already talked about today, just from my past when I left the corporate world and I really started getting to know the entrepreneurial space and being in it myself. And to be honest, I am rebranding myself right now because I realized this for myself too. And so it's just so funny how that comes full circle. So totally, it's perfect because I can share that from my own. I know what it feels like. And it's like, you hear this a lot too. It's like it's difficult for me to brand myself because, you know, if you're the one inside the container, you can't see the label. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so you need somebody to reflect that back to you and see you from that other viewpoint. So that's really what the methodology is created from, is taking all that experience from the corporate world, with these big brands, and then infusing it with how entrepreneurs work. They don't have a lot of time. And they want to be quick. So I do a lot of interview styles instead of these long form, questionnaires and stuff that's really typical. And I'm the type too. It's weird. Like I carry like these note cards everywhere because ideas come anywhere. You know, I'll wake up at 3:00 in the morning and be like, oh, my client Gladys, this, we're going to do this with her. And so, I mean, it's just some of that's in there, and then you can't really capture that in a method, but it really does take all of those types of things. And then really, I look at it from how can I be of service and how can I really help mold this person and get to understand them quickly and be in their process. So I like to do some client interviews and things like that. And then it's a process. So I like to go from what I call blueprinting to bridging to building. So blueprinting just really, I mean, I won't go into this in detail because we'll be on here all day, but blueprinting is what it sounds like. I gather information, we co-create together and create a plan and a strategy for the brand. And then building is actually where the work comes on me. So this is a done-for-you service. There's no DIY involved. I actually come up with all the concepts, although I am getting some help now because I'm getting really busy. So I still do the concepting and the logo creation, but then I have help to build out. Oh, this is the other thing too, is entrepreneurs, if they have a lot of materials out there, they feel overwhelmed in rebranding because there's so much shit to redo. Yep. So I make it really easy for packages to go through and like, okay, what do you still need? What do you need that's new? And create a strategy on how to rebrand and like what order to go in and everything. And that's the building piece where the work is being done. And then the entrepreneur can just be hands off because they need to focus, like you need to focus on coaching. You don't want to be like part of this branding process every day. So it's really that upfront. And then what I think makes me different from most branding experts is the bridging part. So this is, again, kind of coming from the self-development world, is really during this process, how do you become that person? So I'm branding you as the influencer that you see yourself in the future. But we all, this, like you have paradigms, you have mindset, you have beliefs that aren't serving you anymore. And so most of us have studied this, but how can we, come back and do that, go through this process together? And how can I be a reflection? So I'm not coaching per se, I'm not a coach, but I really reflect to people and help them through that process. Like, what's holding you back? Why aren't you as visible as you say you want to be? And those types of things. And then they can grow into this legacy brand. So that's kind of the 3-step process within the framework.
I love it. I think I loved it so much that I've disappeared into space. Am I
You
not
did
on the other
disappear
side?
for a second.
Am I a black box right now? Am I a black box?
No, I see you now. You were just like white for a minute. I was like, oh God, I am gonna have to take over, but then you came back. So I see you.
Oh yeah, run the show, Mama. You got this. You got this. If I disappear into the ether, just close the show. This is part of my rebranding. Is that Tiffany shows up and just closes every show from here on out. Just as long as you can see me, because I can't see myself
Oh,
right
that's
now.
so crazy. Yeah, I totally see you.
So, what about like? What have you seen to be the benefits of rebranding? Because I think one of the things that can happen is that people get so settled with their brand that they're like, "Oh, I don't want to let this go right now." Or, "Oh, like, this is who I am." But no, can we just keep that logo? Can we keep that? Like, how much of it is being willing to get rid of the old identity in order to embrace the new one?
Yeah, I love that question. I don't know if I've really thought about this. That's a great question because it kind of speaks to what I'm saying too, is you do, in order to bring something in, you have to release, right?
Yeah.
So that's a really great question. And I think you just like nailed it, really. I think a lot of people just have that because either they invested a lot, so they're like, I don't invest in this. I don't want to like reinvent the wheel now.
Yeah.
Or they're overwhelmed because there's so much that would need to be changed.
Yeah.
So I guess the main thing it comes down to, so what was the main question again? What is the...
So I think the big thing would be like how much, no, not at all. Like how much, like how many times are you seeing people who are not ready to let go?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
And the reason I bring that up is because of the fact that in my coaching, a lot of people are like, I'm ready to move forward. But I'm not ready to take this step yet, or I'm not ready to let go of this. And it's like, well, I can see you, Tiffany, coaching people through that process of either letting go.
Yeah.
Like this is not only rebranding, some parts are reinvention.
Yeah, it's deep. It's deep. I've had clients cry. Like, I'm gonna make you cry. No, like when they do that, I had like a couple weeks ago, like a really amazing client of mine, Gloria, we're going through, and part of her thing is that she had, again, so many things. And she's like, I do so many things. I don't know how to show up as like one offering. Like, I don't know how to do that. And so we worked through it and got the messaging down, got the logo down, got the visuals down. And we were just tweaking like the final colors, which was the funny thing. Like she'd seen everything and like, she was like, great. But she saw it. So I do all of my work in black and white to begin with, because it's a lesson I learned in design school. You always want it to look good at its most simplest level, basically. Yeah, and then you add in the color and things. Yeah. So I added the color and I show it to her, and I go through all of the concepts like this, on online and in person, because everybody's around the world. And she starts bawling, and I'm like, oh no, what did I do? Like, she hates it all of a sudden. I thought she loved it. And she was like, no, like this, I'm like crying because it's like, this is it. And she's like, I'm scared because this means I have to own up to who I really am and what I was put here to do. And that's what I look at. Like, if you're an entrepreneur, it's not always easy. You have to have like a big why behind it and a big message to the world to be doing this work, and to stick with it and to, do well. So, I think it's such a thing that people have to release that. And it's not easy. I mean, I think it's just, you just have to take the leap and just trust and trust that it's going to be worth it. And then too, just like the visualizing part. So like, if you really want to be that person, what does it take to get there, and you got to do it.
Well, I think one of the things is that this is so much more. I mean, you said it. This is so much more than a logo, right? And to be able to look at something and to be working with like another human, because I've got to say it that, you know, especially very early on, no one was touching me. Like no one was touching my brand or my business. It was my baby, and
Yep.
only I knew how to do it. But
True.
then to trust another person and to be able to drop some stories and what you stand for, and then them to be able to reflect it back, and it's clear. It's like someone sees and recognizes that, you know, and it's not just a, you know, it's not a few, you know, there's a couple programs out there that's like, oh, identify your 3 adjectives type of programs, right?
Yeah.
And it's not just one of those programs where it's a plug and play. It literally is something that has been created from the groundswell of your stories. You know,
Totally.
how amazing and validating must that feel for somebody to feel, you know, to experience that as an entrepreneur, and to say, oh my gosh, this is the first part. This is the first part of really the next stage, because people are getting it. It's more clear now. It's all consistent.
Right. Because we have
I'm
it in
shaking
our
my head right now. I don't know
heads.
if you can see it. I'm like, that's freaking cool.
No, I can. Yeah, I totally see it. No, I think
Okay.
we have it in our heads, and we have the idea of often like what we think people see in us, or what we think we're reflecting, and what we think they want. Like you don't always know what people want. So that's part of it too, is like, you know, what, if you're offering the service, what do people really want? What's really like, dig deeper, you know, like they may not just want to be like, why do they want to feel this way, you know, and really get to the core of it. And that's what's important. So that's why, again, at the beginning, like you're saying, and I used to say, oh no, you have to, like, branding is so important right at the beginning. It's not, because you're kind of navigating, you're figuring it out, but like long term, it really does make a difference to get all of that passion behind it, and really have your essence showing, and then that reflects and that attracts your clients. And ultimately, obviously, that's what we all want as entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah. So let me throw this to you. Is Marc Cordon ready for a rebrand?
Ooh, I would say so, but I mean, so a lot of times too, it's sometimes I will take something and I, you know, I'll do a lot of strategy sessions just at first to go through people's stuff and like tell them what I think is working, what I don't think is working. And sometimes we say, honestly, scrap it. You know, you've pivoted, this is not you, or you have a different vision of yourself, or you've been holding back. That's a lot of the times happens too, especially with like women and things like that. They'll brand themselves really kind of soft and quiet, but they're really not that. They're like, hey, here I am, you know? And so we'll scrap it and go. Or you can take what you currently have and up level it. And that's part of the level up method as well. It's if you already have a following and you have something going, and you're the misfits that type thing. And if you love that and that's your following and those people are in it, then stick with that and just up level it, So like, I kind of feel like you're like the Shepherd Fairy. I don't know if you know who that is. He's like a tagging artist. Like,
I'm looking up the Shepherd Fairy.
Look up Shepherd Fairy. He's an amazing artist out of New York that like does tag art and stuff. So like, what other coach do you know that does that type of thing? But you can always refine it and you can always up level, you know what I mean? So it doesn't necessarily mean that you completely reinvent the wheel. And that's where, again, it's such a person by person, business by business process in the end, because there's only one of us.
Well, what I can tell you is that I joined your group last night, because especially after watching a couple of those videos that you were putting out on sort of legacy branding, a little bit more detail on sort of rebranding. There's a whole bunch of goodness in the Facebook site and also on just your Facebook page in general. But what did you create the Facebook group on for? And it's called Level Up
Your Legacy.
Level Up Your Legacy. So what did you create that specifically for? Is it for us to get like more of a scoop on you, or?
Yeah, well, and not really, it's not, I don't really want it to be as about me as much as about like my way of serving entrepreneurs and like getting them thinking about this. And I talk not only about the legacy brand, which is what I do, but how can you create a legacy business too? So, it's not, I like to look at it holistically and talk about, I am not a copywriter. So if you're going to do this, like, what copywriter would serve you to talk your language? Or if you are an amazing copy person yourself, like, post it in the group. Let's have people read it and see if they understand where you're coming from. So it's really more of like a service. And, I don't want it to be just another Facebook group, because there's so much noise out there. I work with established entrepreneurs. They're busy people. They're all working up to influencer status. They're working on how to get out of Facebook, not how to get in Facebook, to be honest. So yeah. I really want it to be valuable. So the tips I've been sharing were takeaways from a trip I just recently had from a mastermind with some major influencers out there, like Ron Reich, Selena Sue, Paul Lemberg, those type of people. And then also interviews. So from the other perspective, how can you create this legacy business? And then every Friday, I'm really focusing on the branding piece and how we can do that. And so I have an exciting announcement. What I decided to start doing is, I don't know exactly the time frame yet, but to start doing kind of these brand reviews for people. So just like the consultations that I would do one-on-one with people, but just kind of like quick hits for people. So then other people.
Oh, so freaking rad.
I think other people will really benefit from that, seeing how, again, everybody's different, but if I can just give some suggestions, which I do every day anyways, why not put it in the group? And then other people can learn from that. I really want it to be valuable, like what people can get from it. Want people to show up and like want to show up, not just like, oh, here's another group. And I have just been talking so far. So I think that's a way that will really, from what the people I've talked to in there, they will really serve people and get them excited.
Well, I freaking love it. And I just wanted to thank you for creating that space for folks who are, I'm about 2.5, 3 years in the game now, and now it really is time for me to go back to that original stuff. Think about like how I'm presenting myself. Is this the story that I want to be telling? And also as I'm expanding my services, is this consistent across services? Is this the same Marc, or is this some sort of other fool that's showing up now? And so I absolutely love it. Thank you for opening this up for us. Everybody go to the show notes, because it's live in the show notes. All you need to do, you don't even need to retype it. Just go and click on it and join the group. Join the group if you are interested in really thinking about what your legacy brand is going to be. Or if you've just been kind of changing your logo up all these years, kind of changing your font up, and it's kind of getting all squirrely and all this kind of stuff, and then your colors are everywhere. Come to the group. I can't wait to have some more people from the Golden Mic up in there, because I can't wait to share what I got going on and sort of my fears and my insecurities and what I'm ready to let go of. And so
I love it.
Neuman?
And thank you. Yeah, I don't want it to be a huge, massive group, to be honest. I want to have it like a really solid community, but I know that your people are amazing. So that would be awesome.
Great.
So
everyone is invited except Jorge. Jorge, do not join the group. But I thank you for opening up to the community, because
absolutely
you're right. You don't want to create these massive groups that are just another group to check, because there's no value in that whatsoever. Tiffany Neuman, you've said enough. I'm taking that Facebook link off. It is in the show notes. Guess what we did? We just created a show, and we get engaged with a pretty good amount of people without any publicity or new show notes. So I think we had something very special here going on. I would love to have you back to talk about what that entire process was for rebranding for you and what that looks like at the end of it. So congratulations on you engaging in that process.
Thank you. It's interesting.
And I get to go back into coach mode right now and tell you why this is called the Golden Mic. So Tiffany Neuman, not Neumann, Neuman. I want you to imagine now that a golden mic is coming down from your ceiling. And it's coming to rest in front of you, right? And this golden mic translates into every language all across the world for 2 minutes or less. So, when the golden mic is flipped, Tiffany, the entire world is listening to you. So, Tiffany Neuman,
Ooh.
mic is live now.
All right. Can I have a silver mic, please? Just a joke. Okay. I think I want to just talk about, this is like totally unrelated to branding, but related, is the fact of, being an entrepreneur. And I was thinking about this early today about how we come, I was thinking about the show and I'm like, oh, I have a client call right before the show and this and that. And we're overwhelmed and, moving in a lot of different directions, and just how we can come back. And I know this sounds like a little out there and woo, and we all, and kind of trite, but I was just reminded of like, how can we really be present in what we're doing? And I really came into this call with you as like, okay, I'm going to be present. I have notifications going off on my other screen over there, like not going to pay attention to those. This is a really, like, you've created such an awesome space to do that, like with, and then bringing in other people. But I think it just goes back to everything, and everything we do as entrepreneurs, and now people might want to be like, oh, now I got to rebrand. And there's all these shiny objects, right? So that's part of what I like to talk about in the legacy business too, is I feel like there's kind of this battle with entrepreneurs, I've noticed, where it's like they're calling out other entrepreneurs as shiny objects. Well, copywriting's the thing. Those are all shiny objects. You need to do this. Or marketing is the thing right now. These are all shiny objects. And so I just want everybody to really think about the space that they're in, and what strategy is really good. Like, it's overwhelming when you think about all the things that you want to do, right? So, but if you break it down, like, what are the steps you need to take to create that legacy? Like, what's going to serve you now? Like, what's the next, what's most important? And I'm saying this to myself as much as everybody else, because we all get these to-do lists and want to do these things. So I think that's and I actually didn't really think about this beforehand. I was just going to see what came, but that's what's coming is, to create a legacy business, or to create your, to really be of service in the world, is like, get present and like, try not to be overwhelmed, come from love and see like what steps. And that's really what the best thing you can do is to sit down and get quiet and like, look at that. You know what I mean? And out of those things, just do a brain dump and then decide what comes first. Like, I'm not going to tell you, because I'm on here talking about rebranding, that like, that's the golden ticket and you need to do that now. Like, maybe you need to do something else first, or, you know what I mean? Like, some people aren't even clear on their offering yet. Like, do that first, and then the rebrands will come, and then the TEDx talk will come, and then, whatever. So that's what I have.
Don't hold up the silver mic. Hold up the golden mic.
Now
fun. Drop that golden mic like it's hot, Tiffany Neuman. You just crushed the golden mic live. We're shutting it off. The world is now free to do whatever it wants. This has been episode 76. I'm not mad at you anymore, Be Live. I'll probably be mad again at one point, but we got our message across. Our girl, Tiffany Neuman. Tiffany, I can't believe this is like the first time we're like sitting down and talking. Like, I feel like we're just like buddies, dude.
I know. Well, I always have loved your energy too. I'm just like, I can't wait to get on here and have fun. Like, I feel like we should have a dance party, We should
totally have a dance party, especially because I can't see myself.
Like earlier, my Alexa kept going on when we were talking. It's like, okay.
I think.
Oh, you still can't see yourself?
That's no, funny. I still can't see myself. But we're going to totally have you back. Episode 76 is, thank you. Episode 76 is over, y'all. It's also a Thursday, which means this. We're shutting off the golden mic so that we can spend time with our families. I hope that you consider getting away from work, getting away from all these things, the social media and stuff like that, to really spend time with what it was that you started off in the first place to do. And that's to be happy and to do the things that you love. But here's the final question that I have. So you're feeling good? So you're living in your full purpose. What is your responsibility to change history for the better? The golden mic is officially off, but you know I'll be back on Tuesday like every good brand does. So goodbye. Thank you. Have a great weekend. And on behalf of Tiffany and myself, take care.
Awesome. Peace.
Yeah!